The cover-up of a Peter Zdravko-Blajic Part 1. Peter Zdravko-Blajic was born on November 14, 1940, in Salin, Croatia. Not much is known about his life, but we do know that he finished his studies at the University of Zagreb with a degree in philosophy and theology and later a master's degree in music and a Ph. He was ordained in 1966 and had what was described as a rich social life and practiced many fields such as being a professor, published writer, radio host, singer and composer, and managed an octet. Peter was quite liked by the locals and his neighbors. On September 17, 1996, Peter, who had now been living in Split, was reported to the Croatian authorities after his neighbors grew concerned over having not seen him for quite some time and how nobody was picking up his mail. A police officer entered the apartment and soon found Peter dead, lying on the floor in the hallway of the building, wrapped in a white sheet and with a towel over his face. The local church soon heard of the murder and rushed to the scene, but not to render their assistance. Once more police officers and detectives arrived. The secretary of the archdiocese stood in front of the door to Peter's apartment, and told the police to leave and that an extensive investigation wasn't necessary, but the police did not listen and forced him out of the way to conduct a thorough examination of Peter's body, and his apartment. Peter's body was taken away for an autopsy, where it was determined that he had been killed 3 days prior, on September 14, and that he had been struck once to the back of the head with a blunt object, before being strangled to death. The police at first assumed it was a robbery gone bad, but it was, however, what the police found inside his dwelling which changed the course of the investigation and explained why the church was acting so determined to impede them. The police found 3 glasses and a full ashtray along with 3 plates in the sink with traces of stew on them, but another thing they took note of was a video recorder, and inside the recorder was a tape, and the contents of the tape were a homosexual pornographic film depicting group sex between men. The police also extracted 2 DNA samples belonging to 2 different men. One of the more interesting discoveries was his Chronologie, known in English as the Black Book. The detailed contents of the book, including who exactly had their names written in it, have mostly been withheld from the public, but we do have a basic idea of what was inside it. The Black Book was a written list of names believed to be prominent members of the homosexual community in Split, with some of the names being those of entertainers, entrepreneurs, athletes, the police, the military, lawyers, doctors, and even fellow members of the church. It is, however, worth noting that amongst this list were also several regular civilians. He wrote chronologically in the book. Each date was accompanied by a male name or nickname, a telephone number, and with the number a description of preferences and possibly the price, if the person in question was a male prostitute. He also wrote tendencies in bed. If they were active or passive, what are their favorite poses, and do they agree to oral sex? Some names had arrows leading to other names. He even included rankings of them and referred to his activities with them as his Tihapatanja, or in English silent suffering. None of his neighbors, however, reported any suspicious activity or men regularly entering his apartment. Peter was also reported to remove the cross from his wall during intercourse whenever he was asked, or if he was conducting these acts with those of different faiths. Once the media and public learned of the circumstances, the story exploded in the Croatian press, with the case becoming a massive scandal and news story, with many turning on Peter and condemning him while others felt pity on him. Over 500 people were interrogated, including members of the gay community in Split, those whose names were in his book, and of course members of the church, with them in particular greeting the police with a wall of silence and refusing to answer their questions. Peter's murder resulted in 3 suicides as well after the interrogations. 2 entrepreneurs hanged themselves, one of them being a Macedonian national who was a father of 4. A priest named Ivan Kvitanovic was found dead on his toilet 2 days after being questioned, with the cause of death being ruled as a heart attack. And lastly, Anton Benvin, then rector of the Papal Institute, hanged himself in Rome. All of these are believed to have had their names in the Black Book, with Anton's name being confirmed. Curiously, Anton was also the last person to have a phone call with Peter, although the contents of said call are unknown. Another effect that Peter's death had was the panic it created amongst the gay community in Split, with many trying to seek police protection not out of fear of being outed but rather for their lives, as many believed this wasn't an isolated incident and that Peter was the 4th victim of a serial killer who had just resumed activities after a 5-year-long break. If you like part 1, please hit that like button and subscribe and check final part. It may not mean nothing to you, but it mean the world to us.